What's up, peeps? In this video, I'm using upcycled material and creating a small Valet cabinet for my husband's bureau. I'll use all of this material to build the small cardboard cabinet. And I'm not using exact measurements. Instead, I'm using the sizes of cardboard that I have on hand to determine my final size of the piece. So let's get started. Hey peeps, just a quick note. I wanted to let you know that this is not becoming a cardboard furniture channel, I assure you. I am doing some projects in cardboard, like I said in my bathroom cabinet video, but I want to 100% assure you that I am not just about cardboard. So here's a quick sneak peek of my next project that's coming up, where I am staining our brand new trash container receptacle. I labeled everything, including the piece that I plan to use for the drawer front. The small box that I plan to use for the drawer seemed perfect, so I spent some time closing the gap on one side. I wanted to have one large drawer front, but one small drawer in the middle of it. That way there would be some open space on either side. Sadly, this box wouldn't work out, but you'll see all that in a minute.
The brown box is in the living room. My life is in a never-ending state of that old transition. I got them piled up high in the corner of the kitchen.
I lined up the center of the box with the center of the drawer front, and I made a mark. Then I cut the excess with an X-Acto and my level, sealed up all the edges, and repeated those steps for the bottom and top pieces of the cabinet.
Too small, you all gotta get it transferred. Packing and I'm stacking and I'm making all my crap fit. Gotta shove it all into the brown boxes. I got 25 pounds of long grain rice and the cereal I bought when I was in California. Don't try to lift that box over there, it's full of old magazines, I just thought I'd warn ya.
Once my hot glue heated up, I attached the bottom and back pieces and the drawer front to the drawer.
Gotta fit it all into the brown boxes.
Then I measured to cut down pieces for the sides.
Since 6 sizes back, I got piles of unmatched socks, and so I'll throw them on the
and glued them in place.
boxes that were not unpacked since the last time that I moved, in fact.
I also set and glued the shelf, aka top of the drawer, in place.
I should just have a garage sale. Maybe I should live a life of simpler existence.
With that done, all I had left to attach was the top.
You don't need this stuff, so I always take a path of least resistance. Cause a new place got a lot of room in the garage, and I sure hate to unpack.
I also added a top edge, and then my battery died. Yeah, sorry about that. The battery died, but I got the face frame put in the front, Hopefully you can see here. I'm a little zoomed in, but I think you get the idea. I'm gonna do a really skinny one for the front of the shelf as well. And then I just have to tape everything and get it ready to decoupage. I decided to double up the thickness on the sides to give it more structural rigidity. And while I'm adding these pieces, allow me to give you all a brief update on life outside of YouTube. So if you're watching it sometime in the future, well, as of October 2023, I'm writing 3 new books to add to my collection of published works. My first 10 books are either fiction or reference guides for authors, but the new ones are all about my first love. Snarky, creative nonfiction essays about, yup, me. I'll leave a link to my books down in the description below, so if you're interested in learning more about them and supporting me as a creative, I say thank you so much. And if you are watching this at some point in the future, hopefully the new books are there. If not, make sure to follow me as an author on Amazon. That way you will know when I publish. And now, back to the video. Even though the glue wasn't fully dry yet, that was okay. I taped the edges to seal everything up for decoupage. That helped to clamp the edges and hold everything in place while the glue fully dried and set. But I wasn't happy with some of the other areas and considered double thickness. Yeah, you know what? I am going to. That's a little flimsy and it's only held in by hot glue, which it will be taped in all the corners and stuff. But I think in order to make this a little better, I'm just going to shove another piece of cardboard in here. And well, you know what though? I mean, it's pretty sturdy. I'm not going to bother. Yeah. All right, that's, yeah. Now that everything is attached, I'm going to get tape on all the corners everywhere, sealing everything up, and then I should be ready for decoupage. But I'm going to get you into some high-speed action for all of that action. I finished taping everything off camera. I completely flaked on recording anything up to this point, or from the last point to this point, that the shelf is now in. The side pieces have been done for a face frame, and I remade the drawer. The cabinet needed a full drawer because the small one just slid around too much. I also needed to add face frames so the drawer front had something to rest on when it was closed. And I spent about 10 minutes adding hot glue, scraping off the excess so it wasn't a lumpy mess, and taping up the edges of the new drawer. I could tell as soon as I finished this would be a much better solution, but with the face frame in there now, I had a big gap at the top of the drawer. I ended up filling that by doubling up thickness, taping, and finishing it off, but I did all of that off camera. Then I could start decoupage. I swear, I always underestimate how much there is to do before this step comes. So I use a watered down Mod Podge, that way it absorbs better into like my craft paper and the cardboard. That just helps to avoid bubbles that could get trapped under the paper from anything too dry. Unlike in my bathroom cabinet video, I paid attention to making the corners and edges as crisp as possible this time. I did the underside of both pieces and left them to dry. And voila, just like that, I finished most of this off camera. The undersides dried overnight, and then the next day I finished decoupage for all but the top off camera. That all dried for a bit, but I didn't need to leave it overnight because the underside was already dry, so I had a dry base to rest everything on to finish the decoupage. And to coat the top, I used some thinner strips that stretched the entire width and then some over the sides. I want to do a faux wood finish on this cabinet, so anything that could help sell the idea of wood planks works for me. In total, this took about 10 minutes, and then I left everything to fully dry for about 3 days. Next up, joint compound. Coat 1. That might be dead. I started with the drawer front because it doesn't need as much filler work as some parts of the cabinet will. To apply it, I used a medium width Japan scraper. I was at the end of my old bucket and it was pretty close to fully dried out at this point. Once I opened the new bucket and got everything stirred up, I moved along a lot faster. I pulled a small chip brush through the compound to mimic wood grain. I also did the first coat of the cabinet, but off camera, and I left everything to dry for the night. The next morning, I gave the cabinet a second coat of compound. That helped to thicken things up finish off the corners, and it let me pull that wood grain on a more level surface. Since cardboard and craft paper are super absorbent, I actually left this to dry and cure for a few days before coming back to this project. I used a 220 grit paper and a very light hand to knock off any big chunks from the surface, not to mention to crisp up the edges and corners even more. I just made sure not to pull off too much of the faux grain. I wiped away the dust with a barely damp microfiber rag and I left it to dry. If you've seen some of my other cardboard craft videos, then you've seen me use this paint before. It's a Franken-paint, and I'm sorry, but I'm just not sure of the ratios, but I know it's latex and chalk. This coat's mostly smooth, and it's a really good base color for the faux wood that I want to do. However, this will likely be the last project I get out of this paint. It's getting a little chunky, but I think I got my money's worth out of this paint. Using my favorite stain and seal, I coated everything with a solid coat of walnut stain. I'm using a 1-inch artist brush to apply the stain. After leaving it to sit for a minute or so, I wiped some of the stain back with a dry applicator sponge, but I decided right away that was a bad call. I actually liked it better at full strength, so I went in with a thin second coat. That looked much better, and I left it for a few days. Once the stain had time to cure, I applied 2 coats of Modern Masters Dead Flat Varnish Top Coat. This is my favorite dead flat varnish, and it works really good over stain. But I only did this first coat on camera, and I left everything to dry. Then I got busy creating some super cool hardware from upcycled materials.